For the introduction, what I'm going to do today is talk about the GPA framework. Does it work? How can we make it better? For disclosure, I'm long on US and European equity, including but not limited to the following ETF. Okay, so Greece, Ireland, Austria, Spain, Europe. Okay, and the EFA small cap. On the US side, you have small cap growth, mid cap, large cap, the industrial and healthcare. I also have the Dorsey Wright Associates Developed Market Momentum ETF. So most of you are familiar with the Pharma French 3-factor formula. Which is, the return is risk-free return plus a beta of market return minus risk-free return plus another, factor for the small minus big. Okay, so small cap, generally speaking, will outperform the large cap, and another, factor here that is high book value minus low book value. Then plus alpha. Alpha is the active excess return. And this formula has been in existence for decades. The formula explains 90+% of the diversified domestic stock portfolio. And most active managers are able to produce positive alpha on a consistent basis. So knowing that, then the question is, what can we do to gain higher return or to reduce the volatility? Okay, so that is the challenge that we are all facing. So here comes the global asset allocation framework. Basically, we try to capture opportunity offered by other asset classes, such as bond, international stock, commercial real estate, and commodity. By combining lowly correlated or uncorrelated asset class together, the global assets allocation portfolio will likely have low volatility and could even have high risk adjusted return. So a very simple example would be, say, fine, I'm going to allocate 20% to domestic stock, 20% to international stock, 20% to bond and fixed income, 20% to commercial real estate, and 20% to commodity. If you look at the correlation, for example, between the commodity and US stock, the correlation is minus 0.09. So they are not correlated, actually negative correlated at all. Falling stock to commodity essentially has no correlation. Falling stock to US bond, negative correlation. So by combining these asset classes together, yeah, we can certainly expect to have low volatility, and maybe we can even have a higher return. Now comes the next iteration, is called GTAA, Global Tactical Assets Allocation. The issue that we have is that equity, commercial real estate, and commodity could experience very high drawdown percent, sometimes simultaneously, as in the case of financial crisis, causing the return of the portfolio to be unacceptable. And while trying to benefit from the global assets allocation, the GPA used various tactics in determining allocation to specific asset class for a given point in time so as to achieve higher return or lower risk of both. Okay. So a very simple example would be, Melvin Faber's framework. Say, okay, start with 20% domestic equity, 20% international equity, 20% bonds, real estate, 20% commodity, and then superimpose a timing model. So if the asset class is more than 200-day moving average, stay in that asset class. Otherwise, stay in cash until the index goes above the 200-day moving average again, and apply the same mechanism. And Faber has done quite a bit of work on this area, and you have The latest, the last update was like in early last year, and the mechanism still works. Now, that's not to say that it's perfect, okay? The potential pitfall is that when some asset class suffer from negative momentum, the strategy will only invest partially, causing the strategies to underperform against the rising indices. The risk may have been lower, but will be at the expense of the return. So if you look at this here, okay, so So for most of the last year, we know that the bond did not do well, okay? So the 20% allocated to bond will stay in cash most of the time. The same thing is also true for commodity. Last year, commodity did not do well, so stay in the cash most of the time. So essentially, you have a 60% investment and 40% cash. And if you do that, then you know that, and these three asset class was doing quite well last year. So when you handicapping yourself with 40% cash, your performance will not be very good. So what can we do, okay, to overcome this problem? Well, one obvious approach is concentrate on winner to ensure full investment most of the time. The winner could be cash when all other asset class perform poorly, okay? And then the question is, well, how do you determine winner, okay? So there are various ways to determine that. One very common approach is momentum, okay? What goes up? It goes up most. Well, let's put money there. Valuation, let's buy cheap, okay? Because cheap stuff tend to go up a lot more than the expensive stuff. And it could be other criteria or a combination of value, momentum, and something else. So this is an example of a momentum-based GPA framework. Okay, so Member Fiber has proposed this thing called AGG3 and AGG6. Okay, so AGG3 only invests in the top 3 global asset class out of 13 available, but only when they are above 200-day moving average, otherwise stay in cash. In the AGG6, only invest the top 6 global asset class out of 13 available, but only when they are above 200-day moving average, otherwise stay in cash. And Melvin Faber used a selection based on the average of 1 month, 3 months, and 6 months return and average that together. So you can see that in a buy and hold global asset allocation approach, annual return is 11.5%. He has a conservative. In this case, there are more bonds here. It's 12.9%. 7.5 with a Sharpe ratio of 1.01. GTAA 13 or 13 asset class using these type of rule. Okay, he got the return is 12.0. Sharpe ratio is 0.94. Now on the AGG3, only invest the top 3 out of the 13 available asset class. He was able to get the return up to 19.1%. Volatility is higher. Sharpe ratio is not higher than either one of them because the drawdown percent is quite severe. Okay, it's -20, but obviously not much better than the buy and hold approach. On the AGG6, okay, he got a return up to 17.8%. Sharpe ratio, I would call them, they are about the same. The drawdown is high. Okay. So what we are seeing here, the AGG3, AGG6 produce high historical annual return, though with higher volatility and higher maximum drawdown. Sharpe ratio were in line with the GPAA. The reason why we have a higher volatility and higher drawdown is that the selected asset class in AGG3 and AGG6 were likely to have higher correlation, thus giving up the diversification benefit of GAA and GTAA 13. What I'm saying is that the top 3 selected, in most cases could be all fixed income or could be all stock, and they are highly correlated, and therefore you are giving up the benefit of diversification. So this is one framework. The other framework, okay, I'm going to talk about is the David Blitz and Pim van Vliet. Okay, I actually went to Google and make sure that I pronounce the Dutch correctly. Okay. So their framework, okay, they use a 1 month momentum. Just say which one is doing best in the last 30 days. He has 12 and global asset class, and you will see what the 12 asset classes are later on. So he, on the 1 month momentum, which is obviously a short-term model, log mean annual excess return above the risk-free return is 9.9 for the top 3. Okay, the top quartile, 1/4 of 12 equal to 3. And then the middle half and the bottom quartile. So you can see that the Sharpe ratio of top quartile is actually quite well. The bottom quartile is doing very poor. He then used another momentum model called 12-1, okay, which is the 12 months ago up to 1 month ago. Okay, so it does not count the performance of the most recent month. Okay, so it captures a intermediate term trend, but exclusive of the short-term trend. Okay? So in this case, the annual mean annual return is 8.1%, standard deviation 11.6, Sharpe ratio is 0.7 for the top quartile, and the bottom quartile, essentially, you have no excess return. So what we are seeing here is that momentum work on the GTAA framework, whether it's a 1 month momentum or 12-1 momentum. In both cases, there is no timing rule. Okay, so unlike the Faber's AGG3, AGG6, you can superimpose the 200-day moving average timing. There is none of that in the Dave Blitz and Pim van Vliet's approach. Now, we also, I mentioned earlier, valuation does matter, okay? And this is, again, from the, member Faber's work. And when you look at US 1881 to 2011, when the 10-year average CAPE, okay, CAPE, is cyclically adjust PE ratio of the shield PE. It first adjusts earning for inflation and then average the figure over 10 years. So you can see that the CAPE, if it started less than 5, essentially only 1 year that happened, one out of 120 something years. Okay, the annual 1 year forward real compound annual growth rate is 25.4%. 3 year is 18.9. Once you get very expensive, such as during the internet bubble or during the 2007, the forward 1 year return was negative. The forward 3 year return was negative. So this is certainly a very clear indication that the CAPE as a concept worked quite well in the U.S. He also did a 32-country 1980 to 2011. So some of these countries, did not have data going far, as back as the U.S. And you can see the same thing. When the CAPE started low, the 1-year return, 3-year return were quite high. When the, say like when Nikkei in 1987, has a PE of like cable, I don't know, 60 or 70, then the return is pretty bad. Okay, and so CAPE worked quite well for both U.S. and international equity in aggregate. Now, since this worked quite well, there are various iteration or variation coming out of that. One work is done by Vincent DeGaulle. He has using the 2-year price earning ratio plus inflation plus unemployment rate. And this is the inflation plus unemployment rate is the old misery index. Okay? So the thinking is here is that if interest rate is low and time is good, then you can tolerate a higher price earning ratio. Okay? And he has demonstrated empirical evidence that this actually works in the U.S. market. There's something fairly new called NEPA CAPE. Okay, it's proposed by Jeremy Siegel, the Wharton University professor. NEPA stands for U.S. National Income Product Account. It removes the impact of huge write-down by financial institutions. Think about AIG, Citi, and Fannie during the global financial crisis. The NEPA CAPE had higher correlation with long-term return than the Shiller PE. So the Shiller PE, say the R square is about 0.35, somewhere in the range. The NEPA CAPE, okay, with the 10-year return is about 0.51. Okay, so this is certainly an improvement. The other thing that you probably notice is Doc Ramsey of the Lethal Group indicate the S&P industrial price to cash flow ratio and the 5-year normalized average PE ratio work very well in predicting the 5-year forward total return. So this just, these are variations, but generally speaking, if you buy cheap, and you should do well. Okay. So let's look at Dave Blitz and Pin Van Viet will work in that area. So what they have done is that how do you compare the valuation of different asset classes? Okay, so only stock, bonds, and REITs and cash are included in the available asset class. No commodity, because commodity does not produce any yield, and he has not been able to figure out a way how to compare the commodity. Use the earning yield of the stock or earning over price and dividend yield of the REITs or the dividend over price to compare with interest yield of cash and bond. Various adjustments, and we will see some of those adjustments later on, called extra hurdles were made to account for the structural difference of the asset class. For example, junk bond was reduced by 6% to account for a structurally higher yield than the risk-free return. Because let's say, nowadays a junk bond is about 6.3%. And any day, junk bond, the yield will be higher than the treasury yield. So if you don't make these adjustments, it will cause you to always choose junk bond. Okay? But the junk bond, today, the yield over treasury is probably only about 450 basis points, versus say during the financial crisis is probably 2,000 basis points. U.S. REIT yield was reduced by 2% to account for a structurally higher dividend yield versus the common stock. Okay. So after all these adjustments, the net impact adjustment is that the average excess return of all exam asset classes over the risk-free return was between -1% and +1%. So what this is saying is that after the adjustment for the extra hurdle, most of the asset class in the study should be, about about 0 or so. So when it's doing very well, the yield is much higher, meaning it's much cheaper, and now cause you to buy into that particular asset class. The selection and allocation were made monthly. It basically rank the asset class by the adjusted yield and pick the one with highest relative yield. And we'll see the actual calculation later on. So using this approach, adjusted valuation with actual hurdle, log mean annual return for the excess return is 8.9%. Standard deviation is 9.1. The Sharpe ratio is 0.98, and middle half it's not doing as well as the top quartile. Bottom quartile is doing quite poorly. Okay. So what does all these mean?